People First Language. Today we are going to be talking about People First Language, what it is, why we should be using it, and what it looks like to use it. First, let's start with what is People First Language. People First Language is just about emphasizing abilities and not limitations. It's about emphasizing the person first rather than starting with their disability. It's about respect and good manners, not political correctness. Let's go over some examples of People First Language. We should say people with disabilities rather than disabled people. We should say Tom has an intellectual disability or intellectual disability diagnosis instead of he's cognitively disabled or he's ID. We should say Lane has autism rather than Lane is autistic. We can talk about the fact that Jordan uses a wheelchair rather than saying he's confined to or he's wheelchair bound. Wheelchairs enable mobility, they don't confine people. Instead of referring to someone as nonverbal, we can talk about how they communicate by saying something like, he communicates with his eyes or with his device. Instead of talking about handicapped parking, we can refer to that as accessible parking. And in general, we can describe what someone needs or uses rather than what they have a problem with. And it's better to say someone has something rather than referring to it as someone suffers from something. One might wonder, is this just semantics? Does it really matter? We have to remember that our words and the meanings we attach to those words create attitudes and influence our feelings and decisions. And sometimes we use words or phrases that are insensitive or simply just don't promote understanding, dignity, and respect for people with disabilities. It's important to remember that how we use words matters a great deal. Some things I've heard said in our building in the past are things like, she's sped, he's a lift kid, or our IR students, this or that. But how we can do better is we can just say, she receives special education services. Or in the case when someone may be talking about a need, we can say terminology like, she needs more support, rather than she's sped. We can talk about how David is in Mrs. Clark's class and he also participates in the LIFT program, rather than he's a LIFT kid. And we can refer to, instead of saying our IR students, we can say students in the intensive resource program. While People First Language is the best place to start when talking to a person with a disability, it's important to remember that preferences can vary. And if you're unsure, just ask.